In this video, I'm going to be breaking down how to write a causal analysis paper. So the first step to this is, of course, knowing what a causal analysis is. So the name kind of gives it away, causal meaning causation, so the cause of something, and analysis as in examining to understand something. So in a causal analysis, you're identifying and discussing the causes behind something, or in other words, explaining why things are a certain way. Basically, you're writing about a cause and effect relationship. And keep in mind that these cause and effect relationships can develop in different ways. So in this example, you have one cause leading to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, that feeds back into a kind of cyclical process that makes an outcome. But it can also be simpler, like just cause A going to cause B to cause C, and finally to an outcome. Or even simpler yet, a bunch of unrelated causes resulting in an outcome. So the relationship you're talking about can look a variety of different ways, just make sure it's a cause and effect one. And now for actually starting the paper, beginning with the introduction and thesis. The introduction of a causal analysis paper is similar to the introduction of any argumentative paper. You want to start with a general informational setup that relates to the thing that you're talking about, and to get to the thesis, start narrowing down your discussion to transition into what about that general topic you will be focusing on in the paper. Make sure to talk about why the audience should care. Because like for any paper, you want the audience reading it to care about what you have to say, but especially when you're trying to convince something or someone why something is the way it is, and potentially why this needs to stop or continue, you need them to have some kind of investment in what you're saying. So an example of what potential theses could be is watching too much TV, procrastinating and never studying causes bad grades, or stress, noise, and going on your phone before bed can lead to an inability to sleep. These are a little simplified, and your thesis may be a little more elaborative. This is fine, but also if you have more to say, that's good as well. Just make sure that you're not giving away too much, but that what you say is going to be talked about further into your paper, and it's what you're arguing. And for the body paragraphs, the first thing you need to do is recognize the importance of structure in a causal analysis paper. Structure is important in any paper, but especially in a causal analysis, because you're discussing how one thing leads to another. Describing a process of how something came to be requires an order that makes sense. So the next thing is body paragraphs. I would recommend breaking down each cause and how it leads to an effect in a different paragraph. So if you were going off of one of the examples I listed before, you could have a paragraph focusing on how watching too much TV leads to bad grades, and then the next paragraph could be about how procrastinating does that as well, and then the final paragraph, or final body paragraph, could be about how studying leads to that outcome too. And you want to make sure to provide some kind of evidence or example to explain why what you're saying is right, because remember, a causal analysis is an argument where you're explaining how something came to be, so backing up what you say so that your audience will be convinced is integral to the paper. And finally, the conclusion is similar to the conclusion of any paper. You want to restate the most important parts of your introduction, which includes your thesis, and make sure to argue and conclude in a way that makes the audience care about what you're saying. Like I mentioned before, you should be doing this in your intro as well. And really you should be doing this throughout the whole paper, but it's especially important at the beginning and end because you want to draw in someone's attention at first and then also end in a way that will leave them with a strong impression. And that's about it, so good luck with your paper.